Welcome to Between Baghdad and Haifa, a conference that pays tribute to Israeli author Sami Michael, sitting with us in the front row. My name is Barry Wimpheimer, and I direct the Crown Family Center for Jewish and Israel Studies here at Northwestern. The Crown Family Center put this conference together in partnership with the Hechsherim Institute for Jewish and Israeli Literature and Culture at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev in Israel. I'd like to thank the two co-chairs of the conference, Eli Reches of Northwestern and Yigal Schwartz of Ben-Gurion, for their vision and their work in putting this together. We are all in their debt. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the conference co-sponsors, the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, whose new dean, Adrian Randolph, is here, and I will introduce in a few minutes. The Israel Institute, the Buffett Institute for Global Studies at Northwestern, the Kaplan Institute for the Humanities at Northwestern, the Comparative Literary Studies program of the Weinberg College, and the Middle East and North African Studies program of the Weinberg College.
But I just want to say we're proud here at Northwestern University to have the Crown Center. We're proud to have people like Barry and others and Ellie who put their heart and soul into it. And it's a great atmosphere, and there's nothing better than bringing great people from all over the world to get together and learn from each other. And that, I know, is what you're going to do for the next 2 days. And I'm really sorry I'm going to miss it. Thank you.
We are actually really honored that the new dean of Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, Adrian Randolph, is with us tonight. Last year, Northwestern conducted a national and international search to find a replacement to be our new dean, and we couldn't be more delighted that the search committee found Adrian Randolph. He hasn't been here for more than a couple months, but already in my interactions with him, I've been very impressed, not only with his smarts and his political know-how, but more importantly with his accent. So without further ado, Adrian Randolph.
I'm delighted to be here. And I do have a few comments. I've always enjoyed opening events. I've always thought it to be a really exciting moment. It's always difficult to work through the complex ideas in a conference or a gathering, to stay attentive for so long. And so the beginning is always that moment of excitement before the difficulty, frankly, of working through all the ideas. And that's not to say the interventions won't be wonderful and sparkling, but I really think this is a moment of potential, and I always enjoyed these celebratory moments. So without further ado, let me just say a few remarks. They won't be long, don't worry, and then we'll get on to the center of the evening. What is a neighbor? As recent scholarship across many disciplines has demonstrated, this seemingly innocuous term, neighbor, hides a deep and roiling discourse about our responsibility to the proximate being, the individual, the individuals, or groups with whom we share something in common, but without the necessity of intimacy. The extraordinary Sami Michael asks us to probe the nature of our neighborliness, our responsibility to those with whom we share something, usually space, in a way that accounts for ethical difficulties and tensions. His intercultural sensitivity surely derives from his own cultural history and affinities, about which we shall hear more, I'm sure, in the coming interventions. So I shall not embarrass myself or you by trying to delve more deeply into these matters. I will say this. We are grateful to the organizers of this event, the Crown Family Center for Jewish and Israel Studies at Northwestern and Ben-Gurion University, as well as the participants for joining us in shedding light on the work of award-winning author and activist Sami Michael. I thought it appropriate to begin with some words from the author himself. They are, I think, a far better introduction than I can aspire to offer. So here is a brief excerpt, one that struck me in reading some of Michael's work, from A Trumpet in the Wadi, originally published in 1987 and here in a translation by Yael Lotan. The narrator and protagonist, Huda, and this is towards the end of the novel, relates her mingled feelings as a Christian Arab living in Israel on the brink of war, and I quote, "Then I saw the war rolling through Independence Street. I had linked my fate to a Jew, but my fears were still those of an Arab. I didn't dare to stop and ask the worried-looking passers-by what was happening. I was sure that they would know me for what I am. I felt I was walking like an Arab, looking around like an Arab, thinking like an Arab. The men on the pavement were gazing with Jewish eyes at sons and brothers, husbands and fathers, being led to fight a Jewish war. My alienness intensified with every step. My legs turned boneless. I reminded myself that Alex, her husband, was a Jew, but what came to mind were some Arabic lullabies from my early childhood. Then suddenly they disappeared, leaving me blank, neither Jew nor Arab, in a street that was a solid mass of anxiety and fear, hatred and anger. In this war-minded street, the Jews might let me share their laughter, but not their sorrow, whereas the Arabs would eject me from their laughter, but expect me to participate in their sorrow. End of citation. Now, the evocation of disidentification and re-identification is central to the unfolding narrative, and it also captures, I think, some of the intellectual and intercultural complexity at the heart of so many troubles and beauties in today's world. And it is one we address here at Northwestern. Our vision here is one of intellectual, social, and cultural diversity, and the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, home to the Crown Family Center for Jewish and Israel Studies, cherishes and nourishes breadth, empathy, and understanding, especially when it comes to cross-cultural understanding. We grapple intensely with the notion of neighborliness that underwrites issues of proximity, identification, and possibly the intimacy that runs through what I have read of Sami Michael's work. We are therefore gratified and deeply honored to host Sami Michael at this conference, examining his writings. So thanks very, very much to the efforts of the organizers, including Igal Schwartz, Eli Reckes, and Barry Wimpheimer, director of the Crown Family Center. We are all in your debt.
Mark Twain once said that life would be infinitely happier if we could only be born at the age of 80 and gradually approach 18. This quote, no doubt the inspiration for F. Scott Fitzgerald's short story, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which became a movie. You may have heard about it. It won some awards. Occurred to me frequently as I was reading Sami Michael's latest novel, his 15th by my count, entitled Yahalom min HaYishimon, Diamond from the Wilderness, published in Hebrew in 2015. Yahalom min HaYishimon is a book written by a writer who is nearly 90 and describes the love story of two adolescents, teenagers, in 1930s Baghdad. Kamal, the male hero, is the only son of a relatively wealthy Iraqi Jewish family named Irani. Almasa, the female heroine, is an abused girl adopted into the Irani household as a maid. The vivid descriptions of physical buildings, social institutions, customs, and ways of thinking in this book provide a tremendous window into a vanished world, the world of Iraqi Jews under King Faisal I. Michael uses the wisdom of age to reflect wonderfully and insightfully on teenage infatuation and sexuality within a cultural context that was the author's own in childhood but is now very far in the past. The book is shockingly rich in subtly drawn female characters and surprisingly explicit for its depiction of sex within a traditional Jewish community in a traditional Muslim society. And it's not translated into English yet, but I hope that it will be because it's really good reading. Sadly, I will confess that I had not heard of Sami Michael, our guest of honor, until this conference was scheduled, which is really much to my shame. In the months leading up to this conference, I have had the opportunity to visit Israel and ask others. Everyone with whom I spoke was familiar with Michael and his writing and was shocked to learn of my own ignorance. When I entered a Jerusalem Steimatsky, that's the big bookstore chain in Israel, for those who don't know, and inquired about purchasing a novel by Sami Michael, I expected to have to navigate my way to a back bookcase and find something shelved alphabetically under author. To my delight, the clerk asked if I wanted Michael's latest. And there it was, on the shelf, on the front table, with a sticker marking it as new. Since reading the excellent novel, which more than holds its own among the Hebrew novels I've read, I've puzzled over my own ignorance. How is it that I had never come across this author or his writing? I'm still open to suggestions, but I think that it likely has something to do with Sami Michael's cultural position as an Iraqi Jew in Israel. For those of you who don't know, Israeli high culture, like much of Israeli politics and economics, was long dominated by Ashkenazic Jews, Jews from Christian lands. In my own genealogy, the big divide between East and West is between Poland and Germany, Eastern European Ashkenazic Jews and Western European Ashkenazic Jews. Academics who work on literature have also historically been biased towards Ashkenazic writers. In recent years, though, Mizrahi Jews, including Jews from Iraq, have begun to receive their due. Since his first novel, All Men Are Equal But Some Are More, what a great title, All Men Are Equal But Some Are More, set in the transit camps of immigrants to Israel in the 1950s, Michael has been an eloquent spokesman about the social and economic gaps that separate groups in Israel. In addition to his writings, Michael has been politically active for his entire life, whether as a communist writer in the 1950s or an arbitrator for the Israeli Supreme Court in the 1980s. His oppositional stance has sometimes made him less celebrated than other writers who have promoted a less cloudy depiction of Israeli society. It is an honor for us at Northwestern to celebrate this distinguished writer. It wasn't just Twain's dream of 80 to 18 that reminded me of Twain. In reading the latest novel, I found myself struck by this work that combines a romance with a coming-of-age story. The male hero, Kamal, is a bit like Huckleberry Finn in the way that he floats around the roofs of Baghdad, living an exciting life unsupervised by adults and with companions like his uncle Baruch, a slow-witted man of no letters who manages to give Kamal the sexual education he cannot get elsewhere. At times, Kamal is also a bit like Holden Caulfield of Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, overcome by the occasional philosophical impulse and sometimes walking the streets to gain the space to process a changing adolescent world. Now that I've discovered Sami Michael's writing, I can't wait to read his earlier work. For those of you with background in Israel, Benny Ziffer needs no introduction. Ziffer is an author and journalist who has served as the literary editor of the Israeli daily newspaper Haaretz since 1988. Haaretz, for those in the audience who do not know, can best be described as the New York Times of Israel if the Times were written by the staff of the New Yorker. What I mean to say is that this is a daily newspaper that is the leading periodical of critical cultural reception in Israel. And the literary editor plays a major role in determining what cultural production will be received and how it will be received. Ziffer, I should mention, also has Mizrahi background. His parents immigrated to Israel from Turkey, where his grandfather, I discovered, founded the world's first Jewish sports team in Istanbul. Go Cubs. A longtime provocateur in Israel, Ziffer has specialized in writing and saying controversial things. With any luck, he has something special in store for us tonight. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Sami Michael and Benny Ziffer.
Sami Michael is for me, first and above all, the ultimate non-conformist of Israeli culture. As a writer, as a social activist, as an Israeli, and as a Jew. And Sami Michael paid a heavy price for that non-conformism. And this conference, I think, or at least the question we will talk about, ask and answer, will deal with this impossibility of Israeli literature to embrace what we call the other. And I think it's the main, let's say, problem of Israeli literature, and the main answer, the main originality of Sami Michael is that he is perhaps the only one who can feel the other and can answer the other. And this homage to Sami that this conference is, honoring one of Israel's most important writers, is taking place here, some thousands miles away from Israel, where Sami is still, after 6 decades of writing, a kind of outcast. We shouldn't forget that too. And this is exactly one of the paradoxes that makes the phenomenon called Sami Michael such a fascinating phenomenon, because Sami is of those spectacular victims of the misunderstanding engraved in the what we call the hard disk of Israeli culture. He is one of these cases who cause problems to those responsible for putting in order in literature. So in what drawer is Sami Michael going to fit? This drawer hasn't yet been found or invented. So what and who is Sami Michael? Born in Iraq, meaning Mizrahi, what we say, and also left-wing activist, ex-communist, and intellectual. Oh dear, too complicated. Too complicated. We Israelis cannot stand people who resist stereotypes. And Mizrahis are supposed to be, as we know, right-wing and to lack any kind of sophistication. So that person called Sami Michael should be punished for the headache that he is causing us. So now to the questions. The first question, Sami, is I know you for being quite a practical person in life and realistic. Yeah, when we talk and you explain to me the political situation, etc. So tell me, how come you are so naive?
I beg your pardon for my poor English. While being in Iraq, my reading language was English, but living in Israel for nearly 70 years, the English became poor and poor. But I will try to explain myself. You call me how I am naive. Also my grandchildren call me, Grandpapa, you are very naive. You know, the child of Henderson, who said that the king is nude, he is very naive. Yeah. So that I prefer to be that child than the sophisticated liar who is not naive. I really try every day to defend this naiveness of mine, to still believe that the man in his soul is pure, that we are human beings and not wolves eating each other. If 1941, during the Second World War, when thousands and thousands of cities were burned, millions were killed, if someone said at that time that will a time come then a French can go to Germany without passport, they use the same money, they wouldn't say he is naive. They will kill him for his naiveness. So that I say I am lucky that I live in an era that they don't kill the naive person like me.
Thank you. Okay, to my opinion, as I said before, I consider you personally, but not only me, as the ultimate other in Hebrew literature. And I mean now literally or on the style mode. Israeli literature of your generation was mainly preoccupied with the figure, let's say, I will say in a very general way, of Kafka. Kafka was the model. He was the one who served as a major source of influence to writers, because Israeli literature of your generation was aimed to educate people, to give them allegories about life, about how they should behave, how they should think, give them tools to think. And you came out of nowhere with a literature that is mainly realistic, meaning telling what reality is without putting it in a mask of allegorical, let's say, decoration. Do you accept this analysis?
Partly.
Okay.
I think that going in the path of Kafka and also to postmodernism, it is a kind of fleeting meeting the reality as it is. I think that it is natural. You can do it. You have the right to do it. But I live in the Middle East, and I can't go on dreaming, trying to deal only with Kafka and postmodernism, because if you are not realist in the Middle East, you will be smashed, killed, forgotten. So that in the Middle East, you have to live with not only 2 eyes, 6 eyes, with 4 ears to defend the values that you live for. So that I am a realist, yes, I am a realist. I dreamer, yes, I dreamer. If I am naive, yes, I am naive. But when I take in at 10 o'clock my a glass of coffee, cup of coffee, go to the writing room, close the door behind me, I am really don't know what I am. I didn't feel my body. At that time, I don't know, I am going on the path of Kafka or the path of the child who said the king is nude. This is what, the spring of water, he doesn't know that he's spring. So that I don't know what I am while writing. Sometimes when I read what I wrote one day before, I said, who is the foolish wrote so rubbish things? Sometimes when I read what I wrote the day before, I said, wow, someone else wrote it. So that trying to classify and put me, you are that, although I don't know. I am. It is your problem, not my problem.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Israeli literature usually or always had many difficulties dealing with Arab characters in literature, also in life, but let's stick to literature. It was always treated either through idealization of the Arab or condensation. And you were, in fact, this I think is your major and really ultimate contribution and first contribution to literature is the fact that you are the first to describe in the novel, especially in Hasud, Arabs, real Arabs as they are. Can you reply to that or enlarge a bit about it?
Because I am myself half Arab. I left Iraq at the age of 22 as a patriotic Iraqi Arab. We not only talk Arabic language, but we were part of the language. We created with the Arabs the Arabic language. We talked the Jewish community in Iraq in an ancient Arabic, which was used at the Middle Ages, while the Arabs of today in Iraq speak the Arabic of Saudi. So that I myself Arab. When I write about Arabs, I am the part of Arab inside me. When I write about the Israelis, the Israeli part take the task of writing, so that
So,
it
but
isn't.
can you react to what I said about the impossibility of other Israeli writers to write in that way on the Arabs? Do you have any reaction to that, of this incapability?
You know, at least I can say that it is a problem of ignorance. Jews and Arabs inside Israel living sometimes in the same place, in the same cities, but the Jews, they really don't nothing about the Arab, what the Arab thinking. I wouldn't say the name of the Jewish prominent writer. He said, I have a dream. And what is the dream? Is at night to sleep under the bed of Arab family to hear what they think. I don't need to do that. I am on the bed, not under the bed.
Yeah. You are an exception. I would like to emphasize the fact that you are really an exception in Israeli literature of your generation, but not only of your generation.
Maybe
but also
the-
later. But let me ask the question
Yes.
first. The fact that Israeli literature went more and more toward minimalistic writing. Minimalistic writing became the big thing in Israel, in Israeli literature. And you, from the beginning, you resisted to minimalism. You always wrote in a very colorful, very, let's say, realistic, in this opposed to all this minimalism fashion. What do you have to
Benny
say?
dear, I have to clear a point on the other. When I came to Israel, I didn't know Hebrew. I came with the language of the enemy. I came with the heritage of the enemy. I came as from Iraq, finding another reality, and I started to study the Israeli society, and I come to the conclusion, as a citizen of the Middle East, that most of the Israelis know nothing, nearly nothing, about where they are living, that is the Middle East. And I came to the decision, which I am still living with it, to establish a state of one man, and that is me. so that I am not interested so much what the other Jewish write about the Arabs. I have my personal path, I have my personal literature, and I was so happy. Then they asked in one of the meetings, an Arab writers, what you think about the state of Sami Michael. And he said, I want to be ambassador there. So that I really don't, you know, I respect what the others write, but it is, for me, it is another reality. In that reality, I am independent. Independent.
Perhaps I'll read
reality.
something you said. I just read it loud. You said, Israeli literature is a market with many stands for many writers. I didn't want to open a stand in that market. I opened my own in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's wasn't a question. That was
This
just.
you know, really, this is a strange thing which surprised me that so many people buy my books. Books which is belong to a state of one man,
Yeah.
a school and literature of one man.
But still, I wanted to ask you, what were the books that inspired what were the books that you read when you were still in Iraq, the books that influenced you?
The same
Because,
books
because
that
my feeling is that the literature you read was different from the literature that other Israeli writers read.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally
So what
different.
did you read?
Totally different.
Well, this is the
My
question.
teachers were the teachers of the 19th and 17th and 20th prominent writers, universal writers, English literature, French literature, Russian literature. These were my teachers in literature. At the 1950, the Arab countries in the Middle East and also the Jews inside Israel wrote mainly poetry, not prose. So that not in Arab language and not in Hebrew language, I have teaching or I would say influence of literature of them. They wrote mainly poetry. Yes. I didn't want to be a poet. I am not a poet. So that my teachers were outsiders, and they are my teachers.
Yeah.
And I tried to go in their path.
Yes. I have it's half a question, just a remark, that Sami Michael, for those who don't know, was an exception also from the fact that people of his generation, the other writers, began mainly as writers of long short stories. Amos Oz, Aleph Bet Yoshua. They didn't begin immediately with novels, while you, Sami Michael, immediately began with this kind of novels that are well constructed, well built, with an architecture. You know how to tell a story for a novel. It's not a long, let's say, a short story that is taken and artificially made into a novel.
It is due to the fact that my teachers were good. Not I am. That my teachers were very good.
Yeah. You are, between others, not only a writer, but you are also a public figure and an activist. You did a lot. So tell me briefly if you don't think it's a waste of time to be an activist, or is it part of the writing? It enriches your writing.
One Israeli writer says, Adam said that if I don't write literature, he means, I regard it as dead man. No. Beside writing, I am very living person. I love a beauty. I love my wife. I love to live. I am a simple person, so that I have many activities. I even like to poker. I like to fish. So I engage in so many activities. One of them is the noble thing to defend my brothers, if women and men.
Yeah.
So that I have really a full day. I am at the age of 89 years, nearly 90 years, but I feel on the other side like a naive child, and on the other side I feel as if I'm already living 300 years. Because I have been in Iraq. I enjoyed every minute there, and I am living in Israel. I'm so happy in Israel.
That's really bad what you say, because usually writers, when they address public, they say how they suffer, how they write all day, and they tell their misery.
No. I am
you're saying you're happy.
I'm a happy
you're
person.
betraying
Happy,
your profession.
I am a happy person, happy husband, happy writer. I am smile even when I go to sleep. I smile when I open my eyes in the morning.
Okay, so let's go to the. So.
I think it is maybe it is not so good of that, because I couldn't be Kafka. That is a problem for me.
Yeah, you are anti-Kafka for sure. And so now also, if we are talking about Kafka, but also of others, the women characters.
Yeah.
You are. I think that it's not me who said it, but a French writer, never mind who he is, that the most difficult task for a writer, a male writer, is to describe, to create a real character of a woman, to enter into a woman and to be able to tell her. That, let's say, Flaubert did it in Madame Bovary, but Balzac couldn't do it, and he looked at it in a stereotyped way on women, etc., etc. And you are, I think, the most elaborate writer, Israeli writer, who succeeded writing from the mouth of a woman, and not only in Chatzotzra Bavadi, Trumpet in the Wadi. You took not only a woman, but an Arab Christian woman, and you talk on her behalf, and you do it very naturally. So how come? But before you answer, I say, again, I'll quote you. Once you were asked about it, and you say, I simply love the other. And you say that when I wrote A Trumpet in the Wadi, I almost grew breasts. Yeah, so could you react to that?
You know, my grandfather abused very much the feminine side. He said, like most of the reactionary people, they think that the women have half a brain. And I liked all the time to tease him. He has a workshop on the main street in Baghdad, and I said, Grandpa, look at the cars. They are old cars and new cars. The new cars, they are not only new, because the industry of automobiles, every year they make them more sophisticated, more modern, more. So God, when He created Adam, He was happy with him, but He thinks that something wrong with him, so that the woman is the most, like the industry of cars, created something more effective, more. He was angry with that. I do still think that the women are.
But how did you succeed to enter in the character of
I am like the water. The water is two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. So that I am the drop of the water. I am at the same time a man and a woman. So I feel.
Yeah.
And I have to confess that I was the naive. I was also the terrible child, and the male side of the family wanted to secure me, and the girls, the women in the big house defended me, so that I owe so much to the women, to the girls who defended me all the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a world without what the other side give us.
Yeah.
That is the women.
Yeah. So now I'll tell you something that an experience of mine, and then we'll continue on the other clip. So on one of my visits to Jordan, now I'm not reading sides me, okay? My visit to Jordan, I met a couple, Iraqis, non-Jews, who live as refugees in Jordan. In one of our conversations, the woman said that every time she wants to remember Iraq, she reads Victoria. I was amazed. It was there in a villa in Amman. She reads Victoria by Sami Michael. You left Iraq so many years ago, and yet you can describe Iraq in such a vivid way that even people who just recently left there, like this couple, can find it trustworthy. And of course, I'm referring to Aida, that takes place in the time of Saddam Hussein, and you weren't there. So how come?
You know, I left, as I said, Iraq at the age of 22. My childness, boyness, even as a young man, were there. I didn't burn them. The memories are still with me. My childness is still there. So I said to audience in Iraqi audience in Sofia last month that I have two mothers, biological mother and adopting mother. My biological mother is Iraqi, in Iraq, and the adopting mother is Israel. I belong to the both sides, so it isn't difficult for me to go back and to say that Iraq, and especially the Jewish Iraqi, are part of me. I can't forget when I meet Iraqi refugees, not Jews, Muslims and Christians. It took me only 3 seconds. Then we embraced each other, like refugees who live there, the same cradle, the same river, the same food, the same memories in Iraq.
Yeah, and still I'm asking you, how could you figure out what is going on in Iraq in Saddam Hussein time when you weren't there, and it comes out as if you were there, as if you were writing. So how did you know what is going on there?
I don't know. I don't know how I am a writer. I don't know. Really, I don't know. I don't know the part of the brain which is works, which writes. I don't write beforehand what I am going. I don't write a plan or a sketch of the novel. I said when I close the door, start to write, I don't feel even my bodies. I my feeling is as if one standing behind me and is telling what to write. I really don't know. So there are so many things that I don't know what happens inside my mind while I am writing.
Yeah.
I am a woman, I am a man, I'm Iraqi, and a Jewish. And at the same time, before 3 years, I was called to a conference which organized by the Pope, Pope, under the subject that religion and peace. And I took part in the last session, and the cardinal who was sitting there, he said, till now, according to your name, we don't know if you are Jew and a Christian. On the first row of seaters, there was an Ayatollah from Iran. I was afraid of him. So I don't know what to talk. And the sentence of the cardinal inspired me to start my speech by saying, I am trying to be a good Jew, and at the same time I am trying to be a good Christian and a good Muslim. And so I developed my speech. When I went down, I think that I saw the Ayatollah coming with arms like that. He became 3 times his volume. I thought that he going to attack me. He embraced me. I said, Allah barak fik, God bless you. I think that the best present I lived in my life at that point.
I'll ask you a last question, and it's about, it's a bit provocative, but perhaps it will stop.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you Zionist?
Zionist.
Are you a Zionist?
I am not Zionist, but at the same time, I am not anti-Zionist and not pro-Zionist for many reasons. The first reason, I don't want to live in a world without the Jews. I am very, very, in deep my soul, I am ultimate Jew. Ultimate Jew. So that I am against putting all the balls, all the eggs in one basket, especially if the basket is the Middle East. In the Middle East, we live with the mentality of tribes. The Middle East is not ripe yet to be a modern democratic society. And especially when our leaders in the morning, at noon, at night, that they say that we are aliens in the Middle East, that we are European, we are defending Europe, we are part of Europe. They don't know how in the Middle East hates the European imperialists, because the British imperialism, French imperialism, even Italian, they do so much crimes in the Middle East. And when we declare that we are defending the culture and values of Europe for a Jew, Europe still, I adore the culture of Europe, but I can't forget that Europe, it is also what did for us in Spain. Europe was Hitler also. So that's the second thing. If we, as a state, find the way to be part of the Middle East, maybe we have the possibility to live as equals inside the Middle East. But out of feeling the danger, I am against bringing all the Jews inside Israel. That's one point. There are many another points. Zionism said at its start, before coming to Israel, we have to create a new Jews. And my question is, what is the wrong with the old Jew? I don't be the new Jews. Why? Because in some ways, Zionism adapted the anti-Semitic propaganda that the Jew is a crook, Jew doesn't like to work, the Jew is parasite. And the Zionism adapted this point. We have to learn from the others and to work hard. My father and my grandfather worked till their death very hard. So that, and because of that, I'm not Zionist. But if anyone wants to be Zionist, Shelo Labriut.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.